And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. A man's hobby of building firearms at home has escalated into a 10-year prison sentence in New York. And this is despite him having an otherwise clean criminal record. My next guest explains why his collection of weapons landed him in trouble. And joining us on The Factor Uncensored, we have criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Bayoji Akingbala. When we take a look at this case, Dexter Taylor out of New York, arrested back in 2022 for building guns as a hobby in his basement. He says he not only builds guns, he builds furniture and other products, but the ATF, along with NYPD, kicked his door in, took him to jail. He stayed at Rikers Island for a week and ended up on trial just this week, sentenced to 10 years in prison by a judge who said the Second Amendment doesn't exist in a courtroom. Do we have a problem here? Number one, as an American citizen without a criminal record or a criminal history, can you build a gun for your own personal use?
Well, that question is a loaded one, pun intended, because it's going to be dependent on jurisdictions from state to state.
Say New York City.
Yes, well, in New York City, they have very strict gun laws. So for the purposes of New York City, I would say the answer is likely no. That having been said, I think the 9 Supreme Court justices would have something to say about the Second Amendment rights not applying. I think they would probably have a different opinion. And this case is certainly ripe for appeal.
Now, when we talk about someone being sentenced for 10 years for not committing any crime whatsoever, but for simply enjoying their hobby, which happens to be making a gun. Now, we're told that in some states or around this country, you can make a gun as long as you don't sell it. You know, once you decide to sell it, then you have to include a serial number to it. But if you have an individual who has a hobby and it makes guns, but is only keeping those guns, and you get 10 years for that. Initially, he was facing 18 years. Your thoughts on this?
Well, I think a good comparison is marijuana laws. In California, marijuana is legal. In Texas, it's not. So it's not a crime in California, but it is a crime in Texas. Similarly, when it comes to gun laws, it may not be a crime to build a gun in another state, but in New York, it is. And unfortunately for him, that's the problem with respect to state law. That having been said, it begs the question when we think about just on a national front, is that a good law? Is that a law that runs afoul to the United States Constitution? Does it violate Second Amendment rights? And I believe that there is a good debatable issue there where the 9 Supreme Court justices may just say, yes, it does violate Second Amendment rights, and he should not have been convicted of that act, especially if he's not using it in the commission of a criminal offense.
It sounds like he and his attorney knew that he would be convicted in this case, saying he is throwing himself on the sword in order to take his time, get his state sentence, and then they're hoping to appeal it. And you're saying likely he will face success in the federal court system.
Yeah, and the reason why I say that is because we see a trend of an increasingly conservative court. If you look at the Supreme Court split, there's 6 conservative justices and 3 liberal ones. And conservative justices tend to vote very liberally when it comes to the construction of Second Amendment rights and how they apply. And the trend is to expand those rights to the individual citizen. So it's very likely that the Supreme Court would find that that law runs in violation to the Second Amendment gun rights.
And for the judge to say that the Second Amendment doesn't exist in her courtroom, is she putting her thumb on the scales of justice saying, look, it's my way or no way, and we're going to make an example of this guy?
She's certainly throwing a softball for this man's appellate attorneys to put that on the record and present that before the Supreme Court justices, that I think the Supreme Court justices might beg to differ with that particular comment.